Greetings, my name's Gordon Farragher, and welcome to the first of 4 linked recordings on the taxation of trusts. Well, this one actually isn't about tax, this is the background about what trusts are and why people actually create them. If you were to go down your local pub and ask somebody down there, why do people create trusts? Then almost certainly the answer you would get is something like, oh, it's all about tax, innit? It's all about tax. But then you've got to bear in mind that the average person down the pub is a moron. And therefore that answer is likely to be absolute rubbish. And indeed it is. Probably 20 or 30 years ago, that might have been a big reason behind trusts, but there's been so much anti-avoidance legislation come in over the last few decades that there are now very few tax benefits from creating trusts. So why do people use them? Because they still do. Setting up a trust is a form of gift, but it allows flexibility. Maybe you want to gift assets to a number of people, but you don't know how much you want to give to whom and when. A trust allows you an element of flexibility. Maybe you want to do a gift as a multi-stage gift. You want one person to benefit for a period of time, and then afterwards you want to decide who benefits after them. The trust allows that. It may be that you want to sort of keep some element of control over the assets. Again, trusts allow that. And final sort of common reason, you might want to gift an asset to somebody, and you might not want other people to know who the real owner is. And again, a trust quite handy for achieving that. So what actually is going on when a trust is created? Well, you have an individual called a settlor. They are the person with the money or the assets, and they're wanting to make a gift to somebody called a beneficiary. Now obviously in a nice sort of simple world they would just give the assets to the beneficiary. No need for a trust. But for any of a number of reasons that might be deemed to be inappropriate. For instance, the beneficiary may be a very young child, and passing a huge sum of money might mean it all disappears in sweeties, which isn't good for anybody other than the sweet seller. So what we do in this sort of situation is we look for somebody we can trust, called reasonably a trustee. We pass the assets to the trustee, and the trustee is then the legal owner of the assets, but we then impose an obligation on the trustees to use the assets for the benefit of the beneficiary. So the beneficiary in legal terms is now the beneficial or the equitable owner of the property, whilst the trustee remains the legal owner. And those are the individuals involved in the creation of a trust. And it is possible for an individual to play more than one role. A settlor might be a trustee, might be one of a number of trustees. Final thing I just want to consider in this recording is the types of trust that you're going to encounter. This is going to be important from a tax point of view because the different trusts are dealt with in a different way for different taxes. First of all, we've got the interest in possession trust. Here we have a beneficiary called a life tenant, and the key thing about the life tenant is they have an entitlement to income. Whenever any income is earned by a trust, the trustees, if it's an interest in possession, have a legal obligation to pay that income on to the life tenant. However, what the life tenant can't do is touch the capital of the trust. The capital in the trust is locked up. The remainder man is the person, the beneficiary, who will eventually get the trust capital, usually on the death of the life tenant. These tend to be sort of quite common if you get a situation where you've had a marriage with children, the marriage is broken down, and then maybe the guy goes off and marries somebody else. In their will, they may want their new wife to benefit to an extent, so they may make the new wife the life tenant of a trust, but then ultimately they want the money to go to the kids, so they'd name the kids as remainder men of the trust. A discretionary trust is just where you've got beneficiaries where nobody is entitled to income. Any distributions are at the discretion of trustees. And then finally, you get a bare trust, which is really where you just got one beneficiary, no conditions. So it is a gift. It's just, it's hidden. And a bare trust is the classic example where you would use the trust to hide the true ownership of property. And as I said a minute ago, these different trusts, well, a bare trust for almost all tax purposes is transparent. It's as if the asset had been gifted to the beneficiary. So that one's dead simple. The trusts that we're going to have to look at in more detail on my next 3 recordings are the interest in possession and the discretionary. And the next 3 recordings will consider the income tax side, the capital gains side, and the inheritance tax side.